Good morning. My name's Addison Huddy. I'm one of the contributors on Apache Geode, and I got another Apache Geode by example video for you. And this time we're going to go over functions. But I think this one's going to be cool because we're going to not only cover functions, but get a little bit more into the different types of regions that we covered last week. So we're going to have this is the setup we're going to have locally. It's going to be 3 servers, 1 client, and a locator. And the client is going to put a bunch of data first into a replicated region. And as we covered last week, a replicated region, just every server has the same exact data set. It's great for read-heavy operations, but if you have a lot of data, it's going to be really costly. So the second type is a partitioned region. Now let's just say you create a replicated region and you want to make it a partitioned region because, wow, there's a lot more data than you thought, and you want to turn it into a partitioned region. Unfortunately, there's no feature today inside Apache Geode that allows you to change a replicated region to a partitioned region kind of on the fly. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a second region, a partitioned region here, and we're going to write a function, deploy it onto the cluster, and then run that function. That function is going to copy all the data that's in our replicated region into our partition region, and we're going to have what we want. So then we can go back and delete our replicated region. That's what we're going to do. This is a review. A partition region, it's a distributed region that is going to span the entire cluster and put the data on different members depending on the hash key. Now we can have a redundancy factor that will allow us to, if we lose a server, we're going to make sure we don't lose our data. So if we have a redundancy factor of 1, which we're going to have in our example, the data would look a little bit something like this. So we'd have, so now we have 2 B's, we have 2 A's there, and we have 2 C's. So if we lost one of these, let's say, when the locator is going to recognize, oh, I can't connect to server 2, it's going to bring back up a server and move the data over accordingly. So we are back in the state that we want to be in. That's what we're going to do in our example. Let's see what that's like in code. So this, I'm calling this functions 2 example. We're going to put everything here is in this main method. It's pretty simple to walk through. Main method, we're going to create 100 items. That's what we're going to put initially into that replicated region. So line 41, we're going to create a cache. We're going to create a pool, and this is important. Previous examples, we haven't actually named a pool. We had a default pool. This time I'm being explicit about creating a pool simply because we're going to need that to pass in when we get down here, line 59, in our function service. All right, so the pool manager, we have a factor. We're going to just add our locator here with our port like we've always done, and we're going to add on this bit here around create pool. We're going to create a region. We're calling this region 1. That is our partition region. And that's locally to match what we have on the server. Line 51, this is going to go in and put all that 100 items of keys, of integers, and then types, strings into that replicated region. We're going to pause for a second, wait for some user input, Then here's the cool part. We're going to have a function that will be deployed onto the cluster that it's called down here copy region data ID. And we'll get to that in a second about what exactly that does. But really quickly, it's going to take two arguments. Those two arguments are going to be our region name, region 1, region 2. We're going to use what's called a function service. We're going to say execute that function on a server inside the pool that we created, and we set those arguments. And all we have to do down here is execute that function service that we created down here with execution. That's the execution context, execute copy region ID. Now, what does this copy region ID stuff do? So every function has an ID, so that's something we have to create, so that's why we're calling ID. We don't just pass the name of the function. So copy region data. It implements function. It has an ID, and we just override get ID here that picks that up. But here's the magic. Here's the cool part. We override the execute method, and we get from that something called we pass in that function context, which you can see down here. We get a function context, and from that function context, we can get the cache that we're operating in. So just like any client application we've been writing, we can use get cache, and that's going to give us a whole bunch of access to stuff we're going to need. We can grab from that function context the arguments that we're passing in over here. We are going to parse those arguments, get arg1, arg2, that's region 1 name, region 2 name. We're going to use those and the cache that we got from the context to grab region 1, region 2 of the same type, integer string, integer string. Now we're going to go through, and for every entry in region 1, we're going to grab it and we're going to put it into region 2. And then this is important. This is not as intuitive as it should be. Using that context, we're going to pass back to the client get result sender last result. And this is going to notify the client that we're done. It's done executing, you can continue. So that's what, although this is a void method, we send back the result to the client notifying that it's done. Now, let's run this thing. Let's split this. On the right, let's go inside Apache Geode, and we're gonna run gfish. A lot of the stuff we're going to use, I forgot to go through the start script, so we're gonna run. All right, really quickly, start script, because there's some really important stuff here. Like always, we're starting a locator, but we're starting 3 servers this time to kind of go hand in hand with our diagram there. And it's going to be nice to see kind of different how the data is being copied, make it more realistic. So we're creating 2 region 1, region 2. Region 1 is type replicate. Region 2 is a partition region. We're passing in redundant copies equals 1 to that creation. And then down here, really important, we are using gfish's deploy command to pass in the jar that we're building, and inside that jar has that copy region data function that we're going to run. So that's this line 32 sends that jar, the function, to the servers, so we have access to it, and we'll see here list function where it's actually located. Okay, so let's go into functions 2, and first thing we got to do is we're going to build it and build. while it's going, I'm having some coffee. Something failed. What failed? Oh, gotta run spotless. That's fine. Spotless. It's gonna make our code look really pretty. Now let's try that again. Let's build this. Awesome. So we built that example. Now let's run that start script using Gradle. And this is gonna spin up our locator, our 3 servers. It's gonna create our 2 regions and deploy our function. And we'll see exactly what has been created here. And once that's up, we'll go over here and use gfish to kind of see where our data is and what it's doing. All right, so that's server 1 and 2 have started. Awesome. So now we have those 2 regions, and we have the function copy region data deployed on each one of those 3 servers. Now, I don't know which one of those servers is actually going to run the function, but because of how the data is distributed, it's going to have to run on all of them. And they're going to have to coordinate, but Geode takes care of all that for us. So now we can run. Let's go over here really quickly and let's connect. So let's connect to our locator. And now we're connected to all the servers and we have access to all that. And let's run a quick query just to make sure we don't have anything. Nothing's around. So that query is equal. Let's do select star from. Let's do region 1. Nothing in there. Awesome. So let's run this. And building. All right, now we're at that press enter to continue phase. If we run this again, there's all our data. We can see that we put a bunch of data. However, we're going to go in here. Let's look at region 2 really quick. Nothing is in region 2 because we haven't copied it over yet. But if we click, if we press enter on the right side, we'll see that data move over. Now, let's hit continue, run our function. The function just ran. Let's run this query again, and now our data is in that region because we copied it over. Really quickly, if we use our show metrics, we can see a little bit more information about how that data moved over. So let's look at categories. Category is going to be partition, and the region is going to be our partition region, region 2. And let's look at member server 1. I gotta spell it right. Let's look at the server 2, 37, and server 3, 38. And that's our 100 items that we put in that's been replicated. So that's the interesting part here, is the data has been replicated once across each one of those. Now, if we stopped each one of those servers, unlike last time, let's stop server 1 and stop server 1. Now, if we run that query again, that data is still there. All the data, all 100 rows of it, because the data has been replicated once. Now, what if we went in and we stopped server 2? Probably not going to get all that data again. We only have 2/3 of it because we lost one of those copies on each one of those. Pretty cool how functions work, how replicated and partitioned and redundancy works across the Geode cluster. Hope you found this example helpful, and I'll see you next week.